How can asylum seekers get fast-track NHS care before British citizens? Is this a blinking joke? No, sadly not. Front page of the Daily Telegraph. Yes. This is going to make you choke on your cornflakes this morning. The headline is fast-track NHS care for asylum seekers. Yes, you heard that right. Now, we know that people cannot be seen in A&E. According to the latest figures, 25% of people had to wait more than 4 hours to be seen in A&E in November. And the one way to be seen much faster is to be an asylum seeker. That's right. So if you're an undocumented migrant, if you're homeless, if you're a drug addict, you are then seen under a policy called 987 Inclusion Health. They have to have an urgent assessment according to this. They can ask for an appointment at A&E. They are bumped up the queue on arrival. So if you're an asylum seeker, you just wander in and you say, I'm an asylum seeker, I need to be seen now, and you are seen now. That seems deeply unfair. Many people saying this sums up broken Britain, doesn't it?
Again, you know, you look at it, you actually read this story, you just think, I like to see the logic. Where's the logic in this? And there isn't any logic, David. That's the thing. There isn't any logic to what they're doing. You know, yes, of course they need to see a doctor. Of course they do. You know, they've come into here illegally, but they're here and we're letting them in. So they
get free medical care.
And they get free medical care. So, OK, but why should they take priority over people that are still waiting patiently for operations, for just to see a doctor, let alone just an operation, just to actually go into a surgery and see a doctor?
So the law is that in the UK, even refused asylum seekers can still register with a GP. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they receive primary care free of charge, regardless of the immigration status. Now, in Scotland and Wales, they're also entitled to free hospital care in the same terms as any other ordinary resident. Steve Barclay, the former health secretary, said it is outrageous that those here illegally are prioritised over British taxpayers. I would think most of the country would agree with you.
I would think so too. And if you think what you've just said, that so even if they've been refused, they can still register for a doctor.
Until they're deported.
I didn't know that. You see, probably. Well, I wonder when these laws were made, because when these laws were made, maybe we didn't have such a problem with illegal immigrants coming in. And I always think, David, when you've got immigrants, I was discussing this with some friends over Christmas. When a man leaves alone, his country alone, he's planning to go to war. This is just, and I thought this is such a good sort of analogy of it. So when a man walks away from his own country because of whatever, because of bombing or whatever, he's going to war. He leaves it to go to war. If he goes with his family, he's fleeing the country because of some terrible thing that's going on in that country. What amazes me is that all the immigrants that we have are men. Where are the women and children?
We have a lot of single men.
Yeah, a lot of single men. And I'm thinking, well, why? If it was that bad, why would you leave your family and your children behind?
Yeah.
And I know it's a sort of an ideal, you know, it's an ideal sort of analogy of it, but
aren't they?
It's
and also, I mean, to be fair, when you look at us and the way we treat people compared with the rest of Europe, you know, come to the UK, we'll hotel you, we'll give you food. Do you know what? I think I might be an illegal migrant because then I can at least have a hotel. I know. And I don't have to pay for it. Yeah. When you look at the numbers, though, more than 150,000 illegal migrants have crossed since the small boats began, the crisis. So let me just put that into perspective. That is a town the size of Cambridge, Ipswich or Blackpool.
Wow. That's crazy,
so
isn't it?
How can the infrastructure cope? It can't. Successive governments have failed to keep track of all of this. And that is why that MRP poll is so interesting. The fact, and are you surprised?
No, that's the thing, because when you read the stats, it's quite alarming. And I think people have almost switched off from it, David, because they know it's happening, but it's actually, it's too much now. They don't want to know about it because it is every day. It's thousands, you know, and at what point are we going to say no? At what point are we going to say, that's it, we can't take any more?
And you know that Labour is in trouble when papers like The Eye, this is the front page, Starmer faces growing threat from reform over migration poll. When you've got papers which tend to be more favourable to the government, I mean, even The Guardian isn't exactly glowing in its praise of Keir Starmer. Starmer attempts new reset with plans to cut NHS waits. So let me just throw that back out to you this morning. Just your thoughts, really, on the fact that if you come here as an asylum seeker, you get fast-track treatment into the NHS, you're given food and lodging, and you're stuck in a hotel. Someone's just messaged saying, can I please be an asylum seeker? I can be fast-tracked. And you know, and that is the problem. You can't see a GP at the best of times. And, of course, Keir Starmer has this set-piece speech which he's going to deliver on Monday. I think they're going to pledge that you have to be able to see a doctor within a certain time frame. We're not entirely sure what he's going to say at the moment. But where are these doctors coming from?
Yeah, exactly. How are we going to manage all of this? You know, there's a lack of doctors and nurses and hospital staff as it is. So how are we actually going to manage all of this?
And then very quickly, before the break, Daily Mail, you picked out this amazing piece of advice, didn't you?
Yes,
from the health secretary.
From Mr. Streeting. He said, you know, the headline, Minister cruel to tell elderly to put on heating. So, as we know, he took away the £300 extra, and that affected, David, over 10 million OAPs. So not just a few, 10 million. OK, his statement was, but Mr. Streeting said the cold snap had made it a weekend to layer up and put the heating on as well. When asked about concerned elderly Britons being nervous to turn on the fire because of the lack of funding, he added, I'll just remind people that the Chancellor did take the decision to protect the winter fuel allowance for the poorest pensioners. So what about the 10 million then that he took from? What about those? You know, again, it doesn't make any sense. And I think that was such a crash statement to make. You know, when people are already struggling, when the elderly are already... We know they are. I know they are. I've got elderly neighbours who I'm now keeping an eye on.
How do they suddenly become so detached from reality? So West Streeting, isn't he Ilford or something? So
yes,
he should know. Ilford's quite an interesting constituency. So you've got wealth there, but you've actually got true poverty.
Yeah, you have. Yes, you have.
So I don't understand how he can be so out of touch.
And he seemed to be almost the way he talks is almost like, oh, well, it doesn't affect me. And it is, and that alone is going to make people think, why did I vote Labour if you did vote Labour?
But of course, the MPs also claim their own expenses.
Well,
there's another story.
There we are.
About claiming second home allowances and heating and all the rest of it.
I think fundamentally, I know he's done so many mistakes, Starmer, but I think that was one of the worst ones he did. First of all, he really just, I mean, because all the interviews came out when he said, I'm going to support the elderly, I'm going to protect them, there's no way I'm going to take anything away from them, and he completely changed his mind.
I think the other, two-faced bare lie they said was they wouldn't increase tax, national insurance or VAT, and promptly increase employers' national insurance, which has made companies really struggle. And the other attack, which I think is unforgivable, is on the farmers.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, I live in the country, so I'm a big supporter of farmers. They've been coming through with their tractors, honking their horns, and absolutely, why did he do that? Well, you see, again, it's all about money. He's just trying to make sure that the Bank of England, our lovely bank, and this party have lots of money. What about actually the fact that there's so many suicides, David? Now, the suicide rate has increased.
And
the moment it was announced, the moment it was announced, four people committed suicide that day.
I would like to see him become a farmer.
Yes.
And see how hard it is.
He should spend a week on a farm and see how he manages that with no heating.
Now that is a great reality show. Keir Starmer.
Oh yeah, Keir Starmer on a farm. Let's do it.
Let's
you heard it here first.
Let's pitch that.